What is going on, guys? TKD 1, 2, think we do. And talk about another issue involving the loot box dilemma. This has been going on for a few days now. That's been kind of hectic, with the new game Shadow of War and stuff like that. And just overall, the past few months have been just flooded with a bunch of news revolving loot boxes. And today we have another installment in that entire saga. This news, of course, comes to us from IGN, and what they're saying here is that the UK government is going to investigate loot boxes following a petition that was online and has since reached a mark of, people signing it, whatever, that warrants a response. So the actual online document got over 10,000 people that signed in on it, so that is the minimum that they need to ensure a response from the government, and they have said, they are going to, respond to it, accordingly. The header onto this document says, adapt gambling laws to include gambling and video games which target children. So essentially here, what they're getting at here is they want to change the law to include these games that are including in-game ways and mechanics into loot boxes that, are very, very much aimed at younger kids and children, whatever, and vulnerable adults, they say, as well. And they just go on to say, quote, while not currently considers gambling by law, they do copy many traits to make them as addictive and can lead to real money being lost/earned. Gambling in video games mostly involves loot boxes, where people use virtual currency, often bought with real money, to earn in-game items often worth less than what they paid for, sometimes more. And what it also, adds a little bit of weight to it is that they also point to a law that was passed in China that is a law where these big devs and these big people that are putting out games, whatever, they have to display the odds behind the loot boxes in games like Overwatch and CSGO. That way you, as user, going into this whole thing with loot boxes and everything, and all these different aspects of games where it's a little bit more of a chance thing, where you can understand and know that, hey, I have like a 1 in 50 chance of getting this item, or 1 in 50 chance of getting this certain thing out of this loot box. So they make them display those on the games in China that are being released, at least in China. I don't know if it's games that are being made in China or the games that are just out in China. I believe it's games that are out in China, where, like, for example, Overwatch in China shows the different rates or different odds behind loot boxes. And then they also end off their whole thing with going on a tangent saying that the UK has been had a standard of these different things in gambling where it's more of a very, very clear, straight up approach to these type of things, and so they kind of want to bring those same rules and then and like same sort of things to the video game industry, because hey, like, they believe like in their point of view that gambling is prevalent in these loot boxes and everything like that. And I can definitely see their point. I definitely see what they're arguing with. But if we even look at last week when the ESRB stated that loot boxes are not gambling, right? And they gave their very, very good point of saying that, hey, every time you use a loot box system or you use a system of chance in video games, you always get something out of it. You never leave empty-handed. As opposed to gambling at a club, you can literally leave empty-handed and sometimes leave with a negative amount than what you came with. Like, like you can actually lose something at a, casino or whatever, or something like that. As opposed to in a game like Overwatch or a game like Call of Duty, whatever, when you're doing the loot boxes, you always get something. Now, it might not be what you want. It might not be, the most really, really cool, epic thing. It might just be like a regular item or whatever, but you still get a regular item. And I feel that here, this is why I feel like this might not work, lumping in loot boxes with gambling. Of course, there is a slant where you can totally make it work, right? But I feel like maybe where they kind of angle it and where they kind of worded it is kind of giving a little bit of leeway towards that kind of angle. What I mean by that is when they say it can lead to real money being lost/earned, and the loot that you receive may not be the exact amount that you paid for it, right? So what I think could happen here, right, this is me just just totally off the top of my head, I'm totally not just having this by any sort of knowledge or whatever, but what I think maybe could happen is like, hey, listen, let's say they have a loot box system, right, and you can buy differing tiers of loot boxes and they cost different amounts. However, the only difference here is that usually when you have those type of things in the game, you have the same pool of things that you can get, right? So you can somehow, so like, there are times where you can buy a regular loot box as opposed to like an upgraded loot box and get something that is crazy upgraded, right? So you kind of, were the victor in that deal, right? Or as opposed to, like, for example, if you buy a higher end loot box, which is also kind of in the same way, you might get a lower end tier item, right? So maybe what they're saying here is that, hey, what if we split up the pools of things that you can get in loot boxes, right? So like, let's say you can only get this legendary chest piece or this like legendary gun or whatever in the legendary loot boxes, okay? And then only get the regular common items, of course, in the lower tier loot boxes, right? So I feel that's maybe what I feel like that might be a compromise in a way, but I feel like that obviously might be a hard, thing to swallow when it comes to devs and publishers over that, literally making millions of dollars off these loot boxes, right? But, having a system where, let's say you can buy either like a blue, green, or red, right? And so let's say the red is the highest one, the blue is the lowest, and the green is in the middle, right? So like I can buy, let's say a green one day, it costs like, let's say $2, whatever, and I might get a item that is worth that amount, that is in kind of the middle of the range here, not too good, not too, whatever, just regular-ish, but somewhere in that middle range. Or if I want to go a little bit lighter, I can buy a blue box, which is only like $1, or I can go baller out and get the highest, the best things I can ever get in a loot box system, and then get that red item. But of course, that goes into pay to win, and that's ultimately very, very bad for the industry. And it's a whole other thing, that we are talking about here as opposed to loot boxes, because they're kind of just just rummaging around with the thing about loot boxes, not so much about pay to win, and that just really comes into the overall stigma of loot boxes, is that to a certain like onto a certain extent, loot boxes flow into pay to win. But doubling back onto the article here, I feel like they probably won't categorize this as gambling, right? Because if the ESRB didn't, right, and they had a very, very strong case of why they didn't call it gambling, and it does make sense to a lot of people. Like I was reading on Reddit and on all their different forums and everything, and they were all saying that, hey, yo, like loot boxes aren't gambling. They have a really, really strong point here, right? So I feel like here in the UK the same will be said here. They won't label as gambling, but of course there are things to be done with loot boxes. I 100% agree with the notion of having the rates and the different odds being posted on the game. I really do like that feature that they do over in China, and I hope that that gets installed to the US and the UK and stuff like that. But who knows when that will ever happen, or if it will ever happen. But yeah, that was another addition to the loot box craze. It's pretty big in the news right now. A lot of people are talking about it. I figured that I'd just get my 2 cents on the topic at hand when it comes to loot boxes. And that's all I got for today, guys. If you enjoyed, make sure you leave a like, subscribe, and share down below. Thanks for watching, and as always, I got you.